Hi Sherry, fantastic work submitting this next lot of essays is really good to see. Okay, so good, your first one was on the diagram, so the pie chart showing school subject preference. Let's have a look at what you've got. The pie charts give information about the changes in students' interests in various academic areas from 2014 to 2017 in an Australian state. Okay. What I would say for this one is to state the place. Okay, so normally best to state the name of the place in the diagram at the beginning, just to show that you've understood. So in New South Wales. Okay. Good. Okay. The majority of pupils preferred geography in 2014. However, the subject with the most preference changed to biology in 2017. Okay, so I would change this wording slightly because it's a little bit misleading and say the subject, or however, the preferred subject changed in 2017 to biology. Okay, so we're trying to show that we're going from geography in 2014 to biology in 2017. But yeah, good. In the initial survey, around a quarter of the surveyed population indicated either geography or maths with an S as their preference, adding up to more than half of the total number of people. Well done, good. Meanwhile, chemistry, IT and history were the least favoured areas of studying, with less than 2% each. I would say were the least favoured subjects. Okay. But yes, good. Nice analysis there. Yeah, very well done. Surprisingly, biology rose from the 4th place in 2014 to the 1st place in 2017, when nearly one quarter of the interviewed candidates selected it as their favourite subject. Good. Really, again, really well worded and nice use of surprisingly as well. Is a good way to analyse this. Furthermore, the interest in history also grew dramatically to approximately 20%. Brilliant. Well done. Yeah, really great comparisons here, and it's good to see how you're taking this information and manipulating it to be able to show the differences in the different years is great. Overall, good. The preferences for school subjects, I would say here, the preferred school subjects fluctuated over the 3-year period in New South Wales. Good. Interest in geography dropped by 9%, whereas that interesting. That in biology increased to nearly 10%. So just remember those prepositions in there. It is difficult to predict which subject will have the most preference in the next 3 years. Okay, in the next 3 years. But yes, well done. Good. A nice analysis there, because you haven't just stated the facts, but you've taken them and you've compared them together, which is really great. As well as that is the good way in which you vary your words. So particularly for rising and falling, so dropped, fluctuated, grew dramatically. These are all great and show that you have a good grasp of English and can vary your lexical range a lot. So yes, brilliant work, fantastic. I would say that's a very good piece of writing. Let's go on to your next one. I see that you're a little bit concerned that maybe this one is a little bit long. We'll talk about that in a moment. I can see that you've used a lot of the target language, which is really good to see. So your question: nowadays in many countries, young people leave rural areas to study or work in cities. What are the reasons for this? Do the benefits of this outweigh the disadvantages? So experts throughout both the developing and developed countries have debated whether young people moving to cities to study or work has a negative impact on the rural areas or benefits the society as a whole. This essay will discuss both sides using examples from McGill University and the Ministry of Labour in Canada to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, well done. So, throughout both, I would take out the here. You probably heard when I was reading it, confused me slightly. But yeah, experts throughout both developing and developed countries have debated whether young people moving to cities to study or work has a negative impact on rural areas, so know the on rural areas, or benefits the society as a whole. Nice use of society as a whole. Good work. This essay will discuss both sides using examples from to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Yeah, well done. Fantastic. All right then. So, a strong introduction there, nicely worded. Like I said, great use of society as a whole is nice to see. Good. Let's move on to your next paragraph then. There is ample evidence that supports the idea of moving to cities. Supports the idea that moving to cities is beneficial to both the individual, no S, and the society, singular, not plural. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, most young people are in search of academic resources and internships, which are commonly located in cities during their post-secondary studies. Okay. Secondly, many companies in cities provide occupations with compensations that are much more attractive than those in small towns. For example, recent empirical research by the McGill University demonstrated that 90% of all young people from rural areas, choose to attend better education in cities and eventually stay for work in the following decade. So after their studies, the decade after they stay for work, so in the following decade. It must not be forgotten that researchers also stated that full-time employment is amongst the strongest factors that draw, no S, young adults from less developed areas. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that there is a considerably strong case to be made in favour of supporting migration of young people to cities to pursue further education and well-paid positions. Okay, so thinking about the length here, this one is your longest paragraph, and I would say that you are right in that it's perhaps too long at this point. Because of the word limit and the time limit, I would say that you wouldn't be able to get this amount of length into the exam and for it to be accurate and concise as well. So what I would say is it is best to try and reduce this paragraph a little. And I would say the way of doing that is to focus on one point in particular. So, because you've got education and you've got work in this paragraph, it makes it quite long because those are two very big points. So I would suggest staying with work because you've got this point on internships, so you can still use the twofold element. So young people are in search of quality internships which are commonly located in cities, full stop. Secondly, companies in cities provide higher salaries than those of small towns. Okay, so we're making this much more concise, and it means that you can analyze those 2 points more thoroughly here without having the length of the paragraph as well. So if you stuck to those 2 points, so internships and then salary, that would shorten this first part, but still give you 2 very good points. And then you can still use this example. So, but you would take the focus off education. So 90% of all young people who choose to move to cities for education eventually stay for jobs, because of their higher salaries, for example. So you're still using the same example, so you don't need to change that, but you're focusing on them staying for the jobs, and that will support this part on internships and then higher salaries. It must not be forgotten that research has also stated that full-time employment is amongst the strongest factors that draws young adults from less developed areas. Okay. Good. I would say that this is a very good sentence, and it would be good as a sentence that rounds off your paragraph. So instead of having another sentence at the bottom, I would say, it must not be forgotten that researchers also state that full-time employment is amongst the strongest factors that attract young adults from rural areas. Providing a key reason for migration from rural to urban locations, for example. And that would do two things. It would show that full-time employment is one of the key factors, and also that it shows one of the key reasons. Okay, so one of the biggest reasons. Then you can take out this sentence, and again that will have the effect of shortening your paragraph slightly. So to summarize at that point, what I would say is, in your paragraphs, try to stick to one or two linked, very pertinent examples. Trying to tackle both work and education in one paragraph often leads to a paragraph that's quite generalized and quite long. So if you stick to one key point, such as work, and look at that in a lot of detail, you'll get more marks for your language quality and your ability to explore the reasons here. Okay. Next one. Although there is a case for appealing educational and vocational opportunities in cities. Okay, good. So having changed this paragraph to talk about vocational in particular, I would take out educational and just stick to vocational to show the link between the two in cities. It is unfortunate that most rural areas are challenged by the generational gap in agriculture. Okay, great point here. This is because as more people move to cities around the world, less human resource is retained for field work. No S there. Okay. For example, the extended studies from the Ministry of Labour in Canada showed that 30% of the farms in Quebec were forced to reduce their operational size due to difficult recruitment in 2016. I would say due to low recruitment. Okay. Consequently, it is possible to state that the largest drawback to such migration from rural areas to cities is the potential for a drastic reduction in agricultural activities. And very well done. This is a really good paragraph. Okay, so notice how the length is shorter than this one above, but it is very to the point. Every sentence that you've got in there links to agriculture and how this is a negative impact. So this is a really good paragraph that you've got there. Good. Okay. As well as that, you've linked it to the previous paragraph, so acknowledging the vocational opportunities, but showing that there's this massive challenge as well. So yeah, very well done. Good. Okay. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the advantages of abundance of jobs and academic resources in cities are invaluable for individuals and industries. Okay. So I firmly believe that I would take out this and say abundance of jobs and academic resources, so reducing our word count slightly. Nevertheless, governments should sponsor competitive jobs to attract workers to rural areas as well. Okay, so this is becoming quite a long sentence. I would suggest we break it into two by putting a full stop in here. Okay, nevertheless, comma, governments should sponsor competitive jobs to attract workers to rural areas as well. I would say that this one is your opinion, so make that clear and say from my point of view, government should Okay. In Western Canada, some provinces have successfully recruited educated young people to incorporate advanced technology in the agricultural production in the countryside. Therefore, the pros of young people studying and working in the cities are greater than the cons. Okay. Because this is your conclusion, and although this is a great argument, I would say that you would either need this further up in your essay or to leave it out, purely because in your conclusion we try not to add anything new, but we want to comment on the things that we've already said. Okay, and also at this point your conclusion is quite long because of that example in the middle. And again, thinking about your word count, I would say that maybe that would make this essay a little bit too long. So in that case, take this one out of there and focus more on the opinion rather than the evidence. So your conclusion is there to summarize and give your opinion. Okay. But yes, I would say a very good piece of writing. One that you've clearly worked very hard on, and you've tried to use as much target language as you can. I would say that you were right to say that you're possibly a little bit worried about the length of it, but if you take on board what we've said today, that would reduce your word count considerably, make your essay more concise, and also mean that you're focusing a lot on key points instead of trying to take on too many examples that you then have to explain in less detail. Okay, but a really, really strong piece of writing. It's just that word length that needs to, word count that needs to be reduced slightly, but otherwise it's a very strong piece of work. So really well done. Great work.